Tonight, before you eat dinner, do something strange. Look at your food before you cook it. Raw meat, raw vegetables, raw grain, the cold, unprocessed version of everything on your plate. Now ask yourself, who was the first human being to look at something raw, hold it over a flame, and decide to eat what came out the other side? That person changed everything. Not just dinner, everything. The size of your brain, the shape of your face, the length of your day. The reason you have a social life, the reason you have a self at all. One decision made by a human who had no idea what they were doing rewired the entire trajectory of the human species. And the strangest part, we still do not know exactly when it happened, but we know what it did. And once you understand it, you will never look at a meal the same way again. Here is where most people get the story wrong. They think cooking was a discovery, a lucky accident. Someone dropped meat into a fire and liked the taste, and that was that. A nice story, a simple story. Almost certainly not the whole truth. The anthropologist Richard Wrangham at Harvard University has spent decades building the case that cooking was not just a culinary upgrade. It was the engine of human evolution itself. His hypothesis, laid out in his landmark work on the subject, makes a claim that sounds almost too bold the first time you hear it. Cooking made us human. Not metaphorically, biologically, physiologically, structurally. Here is what he means. Your digestive system is extraordinarily expensive. It costs enormous amounts of energy to run. The stomach, the intestines, the liver, the entire apparatus of breaking food down into usable fuel, all of it burns calories just by existing. In most primates, the gut is massive relative to body size because raw food is hard to process. You need a lot of gut to squeeze the energy out of raw plants and raw meat. Now think about what cooking does to food. It does the digestive work before the food ever enters your body. It breaks down the tough cell walls of plants. It denatures the proteins in meat, making them dramatically easier for your gut to absorb. It destroys pathogens. It makes calories more bioavailable. A cooked sweet potato gives your body roughly 30% more usable energy than a raw one of identical size. The same principle applies across almost every food humans eat, which means that a human who ate cooked food needed less gut to extract the same amount of energy from a meal. And less gut meant something extraordinary. It freed up energy that evolution over thousands of generations began redirecting somewhere else, upward into the skull. The human brain is the most expensive organ in your body. It consumes roughly 20% of your total caloric intake while making up only 2% of your body weight. Running a big brain is like running a sports car engine in a city. The fuel costs are enormous. For most of primate evolution, the energy budget simply could not support it. You could have a big gut or a big brain, not both. Cooking broke that constraint. The fossil record supports this with remarkable consistency. The species that came before Homo sapiens, Homo erectus, appearing roughly 1.8 million years ago, shows a dramatic reduction in gut size, a dramatic reduction in tooth size, and a dramatic increase in brain volume compared to earlier hominins. The teeth got smaller because food was softer. The face flattened because the massive jaw muscles required to chew raw food were no longer needed. The skull expanded because there was now enough energy to support what was growing inside it. The paleoanthropologist Leslie Aiello at the Wenner-Gren Foundation helped formalize this as the expensive tissue hypothesis, the idea that in human evolution, the shrinking of the gut and the growth of the brain were not independent events. They were a trade. One funded the other. And the currency that made the trade possible was cooked food. You are sitting here right now, thinking these thoughts, understanding these words, because somewhere between 500,000 and 1.8 million years ago, one of your ancestors held something over a fire. But the cognitive revolution was only half the story, because cooking did something else, something that changed not just how humans thought, but how humans lived together. It created mealtime. Think about what eating looks like for other primates. A chimpanzee spends between 6 and 8 hours a day eating. Not because chimps are gluttons, because raw food takes that long to chew and process. It is a solitary, continuous, effortful activity spread across almost the entire waking day. There is no dinner, there is no table, there is no shared moment of stopping and eating together. There is just the constant slow grind of extracting calories from whatever you can find. Cooking collapsed that time budget. A cooked meal can be consumed in a fraction of the time required to eat the same calories raw. Suddenly, your ancestors had hours back. Hours that had previously been spent chewing. What did they do with those hours? They talked, they planned, they told stories, they built relationships. They argued and reconciled and made decisions together. They sat around the fire that was doing their digestion for them, and they became, slowly, irrevocably, social in a way no other species had ever been. The fire was not just a cooking tool. It was the first living room, the first meeting place, like the first shared space where a group of individuals became something more than a collection of separate animals. The anthropologist Polly Weissner at the University of Utah studied the fireside conversations of the Juhuansi people of the Kalahari and found something striking. Daytime conversations among hunter-gatherers are dominated by practical matters: food, tools, logistics. But nighttime conversations around the fire are dominated by stories, myth, memory, the lives of people not present, the kind of social bonding that builds trust across time and distance. The fire did not just cook food, it cooked culture. And there is another layer to this that most people never consider. Cooking requires planning. You cannot cook food by accident in any sustained way. You have to acquire the food, transport it back to a location with fire, prepare it, and wait. Waiting is cognitively demanding. It requires holding a future reward in mind while deferring immediate consumption. It requires what psychologists call delay of gratification, the ability to resist eating the raw food right now because you know the cooked version will be better later. This is not a trivial cognitive feat. Most animals cannot do it reliably. The capacity to mentally simulate a future state, cooked food, and choose it over the present state, raw food, is a window into the kind of forward-thinking, consequence-imagining mind that eventually produced agriculture, architecture, and every long-term project humans have ever undertaken. Every time your ancestors chose to cook rather than eat raw, they were practicing the cognitive skill that would eventually build civilizations. Now, go further back. Before fire was controlled, before cooking was intentional, there is evidence, deeply contested but increasingly serious, that hominins were exposed to and possibly using fire as far back as 1 million years ago at sites in South Africa, and perhaps even earlier. The archaeologist Francesco Berna and his colleagues published findings from Wonderwork Cave suggesting fire use at nearly 1 million years before present. Not just exposure to natural fire, but sustained, repeated fire activity in an enclosed space. The kind of behavior that suggests intention, which raises a question that nobody can fully answer yet. How long did it take for the first exposure to fire-altered food to become the deliberate, habitual cooking that reshaped the human body? Was it a gradual drift over hundreds of thousands of years? A faster transition? We do not know. The gap in the fossil record is still being filled. What we do know is this. By the time anatomically modern humans appear in the fossil record, cooking was already ancient, already embedded, already so fundamental to what humans were that the body had reorganized itself around it. You are not a primate who learned to cook. You are a species that cooking created, which means something uncomfortable and important. Your body is not built for raw food. This is not a popular thing to say in certain nutritional circles, but it is what the biology shows. Your gut is too small. Your teeth are too weak. Your jaw muscles are too reduced. The return to raw, unprocessed food as a dietary ideal misunderstands the direction of causality. Cooking did not happen to humans. Cooking made humans. The processed, heated, transformed meal is not a corruption of some original natural diet. It is the diet your body evolved to eat. It is what you are built for. Your dentist knows this. Your gut knows this. Your brain, the oversized, energy-hungry organ that cooking made possible, definitely knows this. So tonight, when you sit down to eat a meal that has been heated, transformed, made more digestible by fire, or its modern equivalents, you are not doing something that separates you from nature. You are doing the most human thing there is, the thing that made you human in the first place. The meal on your plate is not just dinner, it is the reason you are here to eat it.